As I'm exploring the latest alpha release of OrcaSlicer version 2.3.1, I ran across another cool feature I want to share with you today. So let's go ahead and get started. This video is brought to you by PCBWay, an awesome prototyping service. I want to thank them for their sponsorship for this video. Before I begin, I want to thank all my subscribers and then all my members on YouTube. Every little bit you provide me helps me support the channel, and I really appreciate it. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a like, subscribe, and feel free to share. So with that being said, let's turn to the latest release of OrcaSlicer. Now, in my previous video, I covered the latest in flow calibration. It's one of the YOLO tests, the recommended. They're now using the Archimedean chords pattern. And with this test, you're checking it both visually and by feel. And from my experience, it gives a pretty good indication of what your flow rate should be. And I will say I do think I like this more than the previous test. Now, one of the other features I really like, it has to do with Infill. I was looking and I happened to notice this new feature, Infill line multiplier. What this allows you to do is take your infill pattern, and let's say I want a 10% infill pattern. I can change the 10% infill pattern from just doing one line and being 10% to being multiple lines and still maintaining that 10% density. Now, by adding extra lines to the infill pattern, I believe it's making the model stronger. Now, what I'm going to do is put a model into OrcaSlicer, and then I'll show you the differences with the original infill pattern and then with the new fill multiplier line. So that way, visually, we can look at it in the slicer. I'll then go ahead and print the different patterns so we can take a look at the shape. I won't do a top surface so we can look at the infill. And then just for the heck of it, I'll throw the models onto a scale so we can check and see if there's really any difference with the amount of material. We'll also check the print times and anything else we can look at, the amount of material used, so we can make a real comparison. So let's switch over to OrcaSlicer 2.3.1 alpha. So for this test, I'm using my Mercury 1.1. I'm just going to right click on the bed, go to add primitive, and hit cube. Now I have a nice flat cube here. Let's make this a little bit bigger, and maybe I'll try to make it flatter. So in the Z direction, I'm going to put this down. Let's turn off uniform scale. Take that down to 50%, and I'm going to bump up both the X and Y to 300. So that way I have a fairly big surface. And let's slice this, and then we'll take a look. So right now I'm using the adaptive cubic. Go into the model a little bit. So that's a 10% infill. And you can see there's one line here. So each of these walls in this infill is one line. Now I'm going to go over here to the fill multi-line. Let's bump that up to 3. Slice it again. And now you'll notice each of those walls is 3 lines thick. So that should make the model more sturdy and more resilient. I want to keep switching this back and forth because according to the documentation, the amount of this still should be, I guess, 90% empty inside this square. So I'm just going to keep slicing it, and it looks like, again, yeah, that stays about true. So looking at the time here, this model print time is 1 hour and 30 minutes, and we're using, according to this, the cost is $1.73. So let's try this, and this is 1 hour and 1 minute, and this is using $1.11. So it is probably a little bit cheaper and quicker to do one line, and the 3 lines is going to cost me some time. Now what I'm going to do is, let's go over here and let's make the top shell layers 0. So when I print this, there's no top to it. And I'm going to play around with the size of this square a little bit, maybe make it a little smaller so it prints quicker. And I'm going to go ahead and print 2 copies of this. And I guess let me show you my process. Let me get it to a better size and we'll come right back. I want to thank PCBWay for sponsoring this video and the Minimal 3DP channel. PCBWay is an awesome prototyping service. They have this great instant quote feature that allows you to design your PCB board, submit all the specifications, and then get an instant quote. Additionally, starting September 1st, they have a new promotion where for the entire month, you can get a free purple solder mask on your order. This is normally an upgrade option, but for the entire month, it will be free. I also want to point out additionally that in September, they're running a special on 3D printing with TPU materials and a discount. Now, for anything over 20 grams, the discount gets bigger and bigger. And with those bigger prints, I'll also point out that you can get all the way up to 80% off. So that's something interesting. If you need some TPU prototypes, you might want to take a look at this great new promotion. Thanks again to PCBWay for their sponsorship. So I've remade my model 200 by 200 and then 50% for the height. Just going to move this over and I'm going to clone it. So we've cloned it. Now I'm noticing, and this must be a new feature, when I hit clone, there's now an option to auto arrange plate, which hadn't been there before. And so that's really awesome. And it looks like there's the option to fill, of course. And let's make some changes here. I'm just going to, on this model, auto-generate some mouse ears. I want to make sure on both of these that I go over to other and turn it on to painted. I like that, so that way it definitely is going to stick. And then I'm just going to go over here to objects. The top cube, I'll leave as is on the strength. So this one will be adaptive cubic with fill multi-line set to 1. And then the second cube, which will be closest to the front of the bed, I'll use the same settings, except I'm going to use the fill multi-line up to 3. So I'll do that. I'm going to hit slice. Just look at both models to verify that that looks correct. For the heck of it, since I painted the ears on, let me rearrange the bed again. Nothing changed, that's okay. I'm going to hit slice plate and send this to the printer. And I'll be back in a bit and we'll take a look at the results. So I went ahead and finished printing these. This one, and I think you can tell even by being way back, is the one with the 3 lines in the infill. This one is a single line. And just even feeling these parts, this one is significantly more solid. Now, what I think is interesting is just based on the time, this one takes about 15 minutes longer to print than this one. This is 23 minutes versus 38. Now, looking at the amount of material, this is using significantly more. I could certainly see use cases for this. As I mentioned, this model is extremely solid. So it'd be a way to, without doing a really heavy infill, or doing a high percentage infill, to get some extra strength. Now I pulled out my scale and we'll see if we can see these numbers. So let's see if we can turn this on. So it's at 0. So here is the model with the original type of infill. And that's showing as 22 grams. Now here is the new model with the multi-line. And that's 38. Again, that's sort of similar to the amount of time here it took. That's about 15 or 16 grams more for this one with the multi-line. Right now, I think this is an interesting concept and an interesting tool to add to our toolbox. I'm not sure how I would use it. Again, probably I'd use it in a print that I needed a lot of extra strength in, and maybe didn't want to go to a really dense infill. One last test I'll do, and let me just try this. Let me switch back over to OrcaSlicer. So as I mentioned, this is the 10% infill with the single line, and let's say 23 minutes. I want to bump this up, let's say 70, and then just reslice it and see what that does to the time. So going up to 70% takes me to an hour and 16 minutes, maybe put that on 50%. Yeah, now what I'm thinking is, and I'm willing to bet that one of these heavier percentages, one of these bigger sparse infill percentages, would probably give the same results as the multi-line. The multi-line, I think, is quicker from the standpoint of you don't have to use these denser infills. But then when compared to the standard 10% infill with a single line, it is a big difference. So again, a different tool for our toolbox and something else to think about. Hopefully you found this interesting. If there's any features in the latest alpha you're interested in and I haven't covered, just please feel free to comment. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a like, subscribe, or even join my membership. Every little bit helps. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Bye.